section of our agenda. Next, we'll turn the time over to Superintendent Dixon for the superintendent's report. Okay. Here's your mic all ready to roll. Hey,
worked.
there you go.
Okay, thank you for your tolerance for that new system. I am going to be brief today, but I thought that over the next few months, as I visit schools, I would try to focus on one of our 4 pillars of our strategic plan. So the last 3 schools that I've been in, I've really tried to look at personalized learning and think about what does that look like in each given context. And I've really been so proud of our Utah Portrait of a Graduate that you contributed to and passed as an official document, and the receivership of this document as we go out into the field. When I meet with legislators, they bring it up. When I meet with our colleagues in higher education, they bring it up. When we meet with superintendents, educators in the classroom are hearing about this. So I'm really proud of this document and the comprehensive nature of this document. So when we think about the Utah Talent Map, and we're focused beyond just academic core, but the competencies that we're really trying to press forward in our classrooms so that when students come out of our classrooms in our schools, they are really competent in problem solving and communication and all of the things that you heard these teachers talk about today. I thought Natalie Darrington, for example, when she was talking about what she teaches in mathematics and how mathematics is the content to teach all of these other skills, that's really what the Portrait of a Graduate is about, this aspirational document. So as I've been visiting schools, I've been thinking about this and talking about these very critical, essential skills. The first school I first school that I visited was Quest Academy, kind of out by Patty Norman's house in West Haven. It sounds like it's very far away and it's this suburban area, but it really feels very kind of urban mixed with suburban when you're out there. And I love I love the philosophy of the school. They're really focused on growing responsible learners and ensuring that students, as they go through their system, that they're very focused on what they're learning, how they're learning it, how they show that they're learning it. It's a K-8 campus sort of split into these 2 schools, but a lot of integration of services. They're using technology in very different ways. They have different forms of technology that they use to connect their school to other schools and to the outside world, but really to personalize education for students. Their leadership team is focused on excellence, and I loved Nikki to the left in the leadership picture. She said parents from all over this area, from Davis County, from Weber County, from Ogden, they bring their students here, and if they're willing to drive their students and make the sacrifice, then we have to sacrifice to make sure that we're the best. We have to offer students a quality education on behalf of parents and students that are making the sacrifice. So I love that focus on excellence and trying to do something different. The teachers, I had lunch with the teachers, and they really operate as an intense learning community. They lift each other up. They're growing their own, so they hire support personnel in the classrooms in STEM. So they might hire somebody who has a bachelor's in biology, for example, and work with that teacher or work with that aide to help her with pedagogy, and then support her in getting a master's in education so that they're growing their own teachers and building this great learning community in their school. It was really a delightful start to my fall tour. Deputy Norman and I then went to Morgan District, and Board Member Earl joined us, so I'd love to have her chime into what she witnessed there. But, a couple of interesting things. First of all, I had no idea how beautiful that valley was. It's been a long time since I've been through there, and early in the morning with a mist on the creek and fall leaves changing, I felt like I'd stepped into a Norman Rockwell painting as I drove into the valley. So that was a great start. But I really didn't know much about the population of Morgan. It was interesting to me that 90% of their students at the high school go on to 4-year degree granting institutions. And what they don't have that they're interested in is the completion data. Are they completing, and are they then working in the major of choice? That would be interesting data for them to gather and report. So their thinking is that since 75% of the community commutes into the Salt Lake Valley or Ogden Valley, and they really are a bedroom community that's residential in nature, what skills can they provide students so that they can either engage in stackable credentials or own their own business or start something different in the valley? So they have integrated this CTE program and have invested great financial support with businesses to have a big printing lab so they can do wraps on cars, banners. I call it swag. So they print on pens and T-shirts and backpacks, everything. So what you see in the upper right-hand picture, they had a pickleboard paddle, and the kids actually unpack that paddle and look at composites. So they do some composite work, and then they see how to put that back together and do some printing work on the paddle. But you have a couple of teachers there who, one is a business teacher, and the other works in engineering and manufacturing. So the kids are getting this integrated education model of learning how to run their own business, the mathematics, the accounting of it all, the marketing. So it's not just about making the products, but how would you then turn that into a business? So really authentic hands-on work. They also have a outdoor recreation partnership where they have a commercial sewing lab. So they're making sleeping bags and tents and backpacks, and then those two programs will integrate together. So it was fascinating to see how they had engaged in that work. I really appreciated the way they've been so thoughtful about their investment, whether it was in technology or their buildings. They gain about 100 students a year, if I'm remembering right, Board Member Earl. And so instead of building to scale of what they have now, they were building into the future. They came in under budget, which is sort of unheard of when you're building school buildings, and yet they have some empty floors and empty classrooms that are not quite completed, but will be as growth occurs. So really some thoughtful use of taxpayer dollars. A lot of technology. The secondary teachers were really engaged in Canvas to provide students more opportunities, more concurrent enrollment, and then literacy at all levels. Ian Gallup in the left-hand corner wrote this amazing piece of work, just a reflective piece that was outstanding, and she was a little bashful to share it, but they do a lot of collaboration, as you can see, with their kiddos, just the way that their classrooms are structured, the way they do their work, and teachers really act as facilitators. So it was a wonderful place to be in thinking about how they are working to personalize learning for students. Board Member Earl, do you want to add anything to that?
Board Member Earl?
Yes, nobody get in a hurry to move that way. I'm just telling you, don't. We have plenty of growth going up that way, and it is happening everywhere. And that is, they plan for that growth. There's a lot of building up that direction. I'm sure there are in a lot of communities, but one of the great benefits of being in that community is we do have a lot of homegrown teachers and resources that are in there. We don't have a lot of business, which also is a deficit for our education program there. So there's a lot of, we are stretched that way. And anyways, but it is a great place to live and work. And the teachers there are very committed to the students. And it's a fun thing to go in and be part of the schools there. And I had mentioned, I won't tell specifically which teacher there, but not a principal there, but we have one particular, not that they're not all exceptional, but one particular exceptional principal who just has a way of engaging with his students and with the individuals in the community in such a way that he does not lose teachers. And we aren't the highest paying teacher salary area, and he engages in such a way people do not want to leave. Even with new buildings and all that kind of thing, sometimes people want to go to new buildings, but they don't want to leave that school. So anyways, it's great to be part of that, and I'm so grateful that the superintendent and others came up and they could see that too. So thank you.
So just a couple of days ago, I was in beautiful Daggett County, Daggett School District. It's sort of a surprise as you drive from Evanston to Daggett County, those of you that have made that drive, and then you drop down into this beautiful valley of Manila, and you slow down for the deer and pronghorn antelope and a few other things that didn't show up on our journey, but we hear cougars and bears and all sorts of things show up on the road, and the bus has to slow down. But it was a fascinating experience to really see how they personalize learning for their students. They have to be nimble and flexible. And as you know, as a product of a remote and rural school, I'm drawn to remote and rural schools and thinking about how cleverly they use their time and their resources on behalf of students. So I did not feature the high school, but the elementary students on the right is Manila Elementary, and they walk across the high school and use facilities there. So they have a lunch period, for example, for the elementary students, and they walk over there so that the elementary school doesn't have to have its own cafeteria, and then the high school has their lunch period. But if you go to Flaming Gorge, for example, they have a little kitchen where kids can come and heat up things, but they don't serve lunch. Kids bring it on their own. So just different ways of being. They engage in Leader in Me. So Josh, on the right-hand side, bottom left, he was my docent for the morning, and his narrative about what goes on in the school was so precious. You would have had no idea. He was a 7-year-old. He has older brothers and sisters. I met 3 of them. And just every student in the school would look you in the eye, shake your hand, use appropriate speech. They were so articulate and so excited about their school and so positive. And you could really get the sense of, in a small community, they know every student, they know the family, and they do whatever it takes to ensure that students are educated. So Superintendent Northcott took me on the bus route, and I've actually heard this on the Hill about transportation costs for Daggett, and why does it cost so much per student there? Well, when you see what they have to do in terms of going in and out of Wyoming and going up a lot of these canyons to pick up kiddos, it's amazing that buses get around the way that they do. And just really an interesting and fascinating way to think about educating students. I was really proud of their concurrent enrollment at the high school. I think they said right now they've gotten up to 16 courses that they offer and would like to offer more. And they've used the facilities in the building well to employ a teacher who can then watch all of the students and make sure that they have a schedule that accommodates the students. You'll recall that you waived the requirement for a 5-day school week, or I should say you approved their proposal a few years back for a 4-day school week. So to talk to the teachers and the students about what that's meant for them, it bleeds into Saturday quite often, in that there's always something going on in the community with the kids traveling. And even though they've tried to make sure that their region is tight, they do a lot of sports with Wyoming, they still have to travel for hours to engage with their peers around the state. So that 4-day school week has really helped them tremendously. Their attendance has gone up. Kids are more focused when they're at school. And the teachers were awesome. I love to talk to the teachers about how they came to be there, what brought you to the area. And they love working there, and they want to stay. So down in the left-hand corner, it's hard to see the teacher, but we met the teacher at the high school, and she said, by the time you drive over to Dutch John, you will see me working with elementary students at Flaming Gorge. Every afternoon, I teach Spanish. And so she was using Skype at her desk on the big screen, and there were, I think, about 8 or 9 kiddos standing there interacting with her, learning Spanish. So those are the kinds of things they do in order to make sure, regardless of where you are in the community, whether you're at Dutch John on the east side of Flaming Gorge or Manila, seeing it live on the west side of Flaming Gorge, that you get the same kind of quality education. So I don't know how many of you have been able to be at Daggett. This little girl, I'll end with just the kind of leadership skills and confidence that they're building in their young students. The little gal on the right-hand corner, we were eating lunch in the cafeteria. We had smiley potatoes. The principal told the kids that he got the potatoes to smile, and then he sliced them. So they're like these little fries with smiles on them. And she came I went and talked to the table of students, 4th grade students, and she was telling me how she loves mathematics. So she stopped by the table and asked if I wanted to join her math club and if I would come back and be a part of the math club every 2 times a week. So she explained to me that she wanted to help her teachers help students with mathematics, that some of the students in her class struggled a little bit. And so at lunch, 2 times a week, they're going to have math club. And she's going to print off worksheets for them, and they'll go through the worksheets. And then whoever completes the most problems correctly will win a prize. And when I asked her what that prize was, she said, I haven't figured that part out yet. But I thought, how great that little leader as a fourth grader wants to help teachers help students. So that was just sort of the energy and the conversations that we had with students. I will say at Flaming Gorge, they have an artist in residence who drives twice a week from Logan to come and work on drumming with the students. When I was there, they also had 2 big science kits that had just arrived from their regional service center. And they could go out their backyard and look at rocks and minerals, but they had these huge kits. And they had a huge kit of skulls, all these animal skulls. So they get all these great resources in the middle of nowhere. And if you think about Dutch John, it was a federal community of 5,000 residents. And when the dam was finished, the city disappeared, meaning no hospital and no services. And so to watch how they've continued on with such a focus on education was so gratifying and exciting, and really personalizing the education for students with and without technology. So thank you to the board for supporting me on this journey of school visits. It makes such a difference. Now when we talk about policies and transportation, and somebody questions why it costs so much for a Daggett student, I get it. I've traveled the bus route. So I appreciate that you give me the time to do that. I know it's time away from the office, but to me, it's some of the best time that I spent in this role. So I just want to thank you and encourage you. Board Member Marsh, I'll give you the final word if that's okay. Mr. Chair, if you want to add anything about Daggett, Mr. Marsh was out there, Board Member Marsh was out there recently as well.
Board Member Marsh?
Thank you, Superintendent Dixon. It was rejuvenating to me to go out and visit that district about 3 weeks ago that is in my area upon Superintendent Northcott's request. And as I got to go out there and visit that, it was nice to see all of the activity that was going on in education, sitting there with the reading, writing, and arithmetic type learning, but the learning that Superintendent Dixon talked about, politeness, civility, just young men, young women who knew how to handle themselves in public in that high school, good morning, Mr. Northcott, nice to meet you, Mr. Marsh, shake my hand. I'd have hired any of them if I was, offering a job at a business because of the way they presented themselves. I got the 4th grade lunch assignment also, but it taught me that the educators and administrators in that district have such an ingrained, commitment to their children. Superintendent Northcott knew the exact name of every student minus one that we ate lunch with or ever came up and talked to us with. He could tell you where they lived, where their house was, what color it was. He knew that. He couldn't figure her out. And so as he questioned her and we talked with her, she was very excited to be there. And she came from Wyoming. And he started naming little parts of Wyoming that attend his school, and none of those registered with her. She kept saying a small community that he wasn't familiar with that could make it to school on time every morning. As he dug a little deeper, it kind of touched my heart to see that young lady. He says, so now do you drive every day or do you live here in town? Because some students do that. They'll stay in town with a grandma or a grandpa and go to school during the week, and then they go home during the weekend to their family farm. And she says, no, I'm living with my aunt and uncle. My mother and father are in prison. But he didn't know her because she had just barely moved in. Once he understood her situation and who she was staying with, he knew the aunt and the uncle. The wheels started turning. We made a stop at his office, and he was going to make a home visit and visit with those acting parents, that aunt and uncle, to make sure that her needs were met. And so I love that visit. It was a great visit all the way through.
Thank Thank you. This concludes your report. Is there any questions? Board Member Cannon, I need your mic on, please.
No, the Daggett district is the smallest district in the state. Can you tell us how many students they service in that district?
Is your mic?
I
Thank you.
think currently they have 146, but it ebbs and flows between 220, 146, if I'm remembering correctly.
Thank you.
And that's in their middle to high school and the 2 elementary systems.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, so thank you, Superintendent.